Good afternoon. National Assembly of Wales is now in session. I'm sure members would like to join me in welcoming Michael McLaughlin, who is Speaker of the Northern Ireland Assembly, who is in the public gallery today, and I'm sure he's going to enjoy the afternoon. Right, we now move to items on the agenda, and the first item is questions to the First Minister. And question one is Gwenda Thomas.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. First Minister, will you make a statement on what the Welsh Government is doing to promote gender equality in Wales's workplaces?
Well, we are working to create a fairer working environment for women in Wales. We're part-funding the Women Adding Value to the Economy project and Chwarateg's Agile Nation 2, and through these tackling the issues leading to gender inequality in the workplace, including occupational segregation and unequal pay.
Thank you for that, First Minister. You've referred to the Agile Nation 2. Well, the Agile Nation 1 project was extremely successful in Neath Talbot, with 166 participants gaining qualifications, 46 people entering further learning, and 13 employers achieving Exemplar Employer Award. Will you agree with me that the recently announced Agile Nation 2 project, to be delivered, as you say, by Chwaraeteg between 2015 and 18, will continue this excellent work, promoting female career advancement and reducing the gender pay gap?
Yes, I do agree. The new project will support 2,750 women. It'll work with 400 employers to provide female career advancement and help to reduce the gender pay gap. It'll focus on 9 key sectors of the Welsh economy, and many of these sectors that will be focused upon do experience significant skills gaps and also witness the underrepresentation of women.
Mohammed Ashgar.
Madam Presiding Officer, First Minister, although progress has been made, women still tend to work lower paid and lower skilled jobs. Schools and careers support staff must be encouraged to allow girls to consider careers and study courses which are considered outside the traditional options for women. What is the Welsh Government doing to this regards, which will lead to better paid and more secure employment for women in Wales?
Well, we expect careers advisors, of course, to provide equal advice to both boys and girls in school. I know there's been a significant increase in the number of young women, for example, who are studying engineering, but also, of course, we need to make sure that there are more opportunities available for women, and Agile Nation 2 is one way of doing that. It makes perfect sense to be able to encourage more women into the workplace, and also, of course, to encourage more women to be able to progress through the workplace, particularly in areas where there are skills gaps already. We cannot afford to allow that talent not to be utilised properly.
Jocelyn Davis.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. First Minister, did you consider that the cuts to supporting people and FE funding will disproportionately affect women, and the cuts, of course, to local government will have a particular impact on women because of their dominance in the public sector workforce? So how did gender equality influence which budgets took the biggest cuts?
Well, we've already announced, of course, we're investing £10 million in Agile Nation 2. It's a substantial investment. We cannot, of course, use money that we do not have because of the cuts imposed upon us by the UK government. That may be the last time I can use that line in this chamber, so I'm going to use it once again. We hope, of course, that the financial situation for Wales and indeed the whole of the UK will change for the better after next week.
Jeff Cuthbert.
Diolch, Llywydd. First Minister, I'm proud of this Welsh Government's record on investment in skills, and particularly our apprenticeship programme and Jobs Growth Wales. However, evidence, anecdotal and otherwise, suggests that in construction and engineering, and you've alluded to engineering, they're still overwhelmingly male-dominated. So would you agree with me, First Minister, that we must do more work with schools, colleges, employers, training providers, and of course, girls and women to ensure that they see these industries in particular as good career paths for themselves?
Yes, we know there are some significant infrastructure projects in development in Wales, such as Wilfa Newydd and the Swansea Tidal Lagoon. They will open up new opportunities within construction and engineering, and we are working with stakeholders to help to focus on activity that will encourage women to forge their careers within these sectors. As I said, it's encouraging to see that there has been an improvement in the number of young women studying engineering, and of course we need to encourage that more in the future to take advantage of the opportunities that will come.
Question 2, Lindsay Whittle.
Will the First Minister make a statement on the impact of the preferred M4 Black route on the future of Newport docks, please?
Yes, it's our preferred route, but the M4 project will vastly improve motorway capacity and resilience across the south of Wales, benefiting not only the port of Newport, but also the ABP operations in Swansea, Port Talbot, Barry and Cardiff.
First Minister, under your current plans for the second M4, a bridge will be built directly through the middle of Wales's busiest commercial cargo dock. It will block 58% of ships from using the North Dock, cut off 1,000 metres of high-quality quayside, take away 40 acres of potential land for future development, and even stop the larger cranes from moving around the port. Considering the obvious negative impact this would have and the cost savings of adopting the blue route and upgrading the existing southern routes, would you now admit that your current plans would cause far more harm than good?
No, I know that officials have met with ABP a number of times, and we'll continue to involve them in the project if there are ways, of course, to ensure that the bridge is of a particular height to enable the docks to carry on working as normal, and that, of course, will be examined.
John Griffiths.
First Minister, the proposal to upgrade the Southern Distributor Road, which passes through substantial centres of population, would greatly increase air pollution, noise and generally adversely impact on quality of life for the communities along the way. Will you agree with me that the health, well-being and quality of life of local people must be at the very heart of Welsh Government decision-making on these issues?
That is an important factor, of course. We know that the problem isn't going to go away. We know that for substantial periods of time there are cars idling with their engines on the motorway, as it is at the moment, and that creates problems of itself, of course. I've looked at the blue route myself, and one of the issues on the blue route is it is very, very close to people's houses. And it certainly wouldn't be the case that somehow there would be a problem-free blue route available in terms of traffic, as well as, of course, the problems of mixing local and long-distance traffic along that route as well. We have looked to examine, of course, the various proposals. Member will know, of course, there are still processes that need to be gone through in terms of particular impact assessments, but we do know that we have to wrestle with what is fast becoming, of course, a very difficult traffic problem with already a negative impact on air quality.
Byron Davis.
Signing off. So, First Minister, leading on from the answer that you gave to Lindsay Whittle, Newport Port have said that they're not for or against any specific alternative proposals for the route of the new M4 Relief Road, but do feel strongly that all options should be fully explored before an irrevocable decision is taken on a route that could seriously harm one of the, as they say, one of Wales's most strategically important ports. Now, I heard your answer to Winsey Little, but can you give an absolute assurance that you will work with ABP to make sure that their concerns are taken into consideration?
Absolutely, and I know, as I said, that there have already been meetings between officials and ABP. There is no reason why those meetings should not be able to continue, in order, of course, for any concerns to be addressed.
We now move to questions to the party leaders, and first this afternoon, Leader of the Opposition, Andrew Arthur.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. First Minister, obviously the country has been gripped recently by the campaigning around the general election, which is due to come to an end on Thursday. Most of us would have seen the tablet of stone that Ed Miliband stood by, the £4,000 tablet of stone that he stood by on Sunday. But the issue for many voters is the difference between rhetoric and delivery. And on his tombstone, on his stone that he stood by on Sunday, he had the issue of rent controls. And your Housing Minister in February highlighted that rent controls reduce the incentive for landlords to invest and can therefore lead to a reduction in quality housing. I think that could give possibly unintended consequences to the supply of the private rented properties. Obviously, your leader has said that he wants to introduce rent controls. Who's right, your minister or Ed Miliband?
Better to have tablets of stone than a manifesto based on foundations of sand, as we've seen with the Tories. The reality is we've had since 1999 devolution, which gives us the opportunity to pursue different policy agendas in different parts of the UK. As far as we are concerned, this is a devolved issue. We, of course, always take into account what happens elsewhere in the UK, but the Minister will look closely at any changes elsewhere in the UK in order to adapt policy as to what is best for Wales.
hardly a ringing endorsement of Ed Miliband's Tablet of Stone that had one of the key pledges as rent control. And ultimately, I'm sure people will pay a lot of attention to that tablet costing £4,000, which would hark back to the prolific spending that the last Labour government undertook when they let spending run out of control. But another initiative that the Labour Party have brought forward, which again shows the difference between the rhetoric and delivery, is the holiday on stamp duty payments up to £300,000. We on these benches last year brought forward such a proposal up to £250,000 where no stamp duty would be incurred on the purchase of a property. Your benches said that this was the latest whiz. Anne Jones, the member for the Vale of Clwyd, said that we were chasing headlines. Is Ed Miliband chasing headlines when he talks of bringing a holiday forward on stamp duty?
We do it properly. So
Two things. Unlike him, through his public pronouncements, I am aware of what actually is in my party's UK manifesto and indeed our own Welsh manifesto. And he will be aware that stamp duty is not yet devolved. And when it is devolved, we will, of course, consider what is best for Wales in terms of developing policy for Wales.
On 2 occasions, I've offered you the opportunity to endorse 2 key planks of what Ed Miliband has stood on at this election, rent controls and stamp duty. And on both occasions, you've chosen not to endorse either one of those policies. I'll offer you a 3rd one, if I may, First Minister. And that was the image of Ed Miliband in front of a question time audience last week, and indeed Owen Smith, the Shadow Secretary of State, the night after, actually saying that Labour never let spending run out of control on their watch, even though the audience pointed out that they believed, and therefore you could assume the electorate believed, that spending was running out of control under the last Labour government. Do you believe the audience and the electorate that spending was out of control under the last Labour government, or do you believe Ed and Owen?
I don't believe a party led by a man who forgets what football team he supports. It's a fundamental problem in that regard, which asks questions about his about how genuine he actually is. I have to say to the leader of the Welsh Conservatives, what I have had on the doorstep of this election is people saying to me, begging me, in fact, to get rid of his party, talking about the bedroom tax, talking about 0 hours contracts, talking about low pay, talking about the fact that people feel they do not see the benefit in their pockets, talking about the fact that there were tax cuts for millionaires but not for ordinary people. That's what the people are interested in Wales, making sure that they feel that working people are properly rewarded for the jobs that they do, a fair day's pay for a fair day's work. All these concepts that are alien to the party opposite, but they are nevertheless principles that the people of Britain hold dear, and it will cost them on Thursday.
wow, can you hear that? Silence. We now move to Leader of Plaid Cymru, Liam Wood.
Diolch, Llywydd. First Minister, last week your shadow Chancellor appeared in front of a billboard with the slogan, Labour guarantee the Barnett formula. On the same day, you said in this chamber, and I quote, Barnett can't last forever. Which is it, First Minister?
Both are correct. The pledge has been made to keep the Barnett formula for the foreseeing period of time, but it certainly can't last forever.
First Minister, you can't seriously answer that question by saying both contradictory statements are correct. I'll ask you I'll give you another example of your party's hypocrisy. You've said that Tory cuts have been damaging to Wales, yet you don't want to reverse a single Tory cut to the Welsh Government's budget. You've said that further cuts could be devastating, yet you've conceded that a further 2% cut, at least from your own party. Can you confirm for us, once and for all, would you say that the cuts haven't gone far enough and that you welcome a further cut to public spending in Wales?
Of course, I don't say the cuts haven't gone far enough. What I can say, however, is when it comes to positioning, we as a party have never considered a coalition with the Tories, unlike hers, of course. We all know. We all remember what happened in 2007, and the bulk, I know her position was different, I give her that, but the bulk of her party members, many of whom were sitting on the benches opposite, were perfectly prepared to consider a coalition with the Tories in 2007. And one thing I do say to the people of Wales is this: if they want to see a Labour Queen speech and a Labour budget passed, you can't rely on Plaid Cymru, because they have said they will not support it. You want a Labour budget, Labour government, vote Labour.
It's all you've got, isn't it? You've got nothing positive to say at all. And that's all you want to do is misrepresent Plaid Cymru's position when I've said clearly that there is nothing that we would do to prop up a Conservative government. But you've got nothing positive to say about your own policies, have you? So you can only go negative. First Minister, if I'm wrong on the question of cuts to a future government budget, can you tell us then what additional resources you are seeking from the next Westminster government? You've made it clear you don't want to reverse a single Tory cut. You don't want a single penny added to the Welsh budget. Is it the case then that you would turn down additional resources to Wales? And if it's not the case that you would turn down additional resources for Wales, why aren't you asking for extra money?
I mean, there is a certain irony, rich irony, in being accused of being negative and then listening to what the Leader of Plaid Cymru just said. I mean, if it was around her neck, she'd be singing like a stone by now. The reality is, my party's made it quite clear that we will have £370 million at least extra in the Welsh budget every year, more than the Tories. A Barnett floor, we have said that.
Net
These
cut.
are all advantages to the people of Wales. We have said we would cut the bedroom tax, get rid of it completely. And unlike her party, we're in a position to actually do this for the people
turned
of
down that
Wales.
chance.
And the reality is, we
You
all
could have ended the
know
bedroom
that as
tax.
far
You turned down
as
the
Wales is
opportunity.
concerned, that if the people of Wales want to see fairness, they want to see justice, they want to see opportunity, they want to have a Labour Queen speech and a Labour budget. Plaid Cymru would jeopardise that Labour Queen speech and that Labour budget. As the party in 2007 were more than happy to go in with the Tories.
Order.
You'd let the Tories
Order.
back in.
Well, that's a fourth
Order.
question she can. Doesn't
We're
like the
now
answer.
moving on to the Leader of the Welsh Liberal Democrats, Kirsty Williams.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. First Minister, as the parties set out their pledges for the NHS, what assessment have you made of the impact of these pledges on the future of Welsh Government budgets?
Well, we very much welcome any increase in the health budget in England that will, of course, lead to consequentials for Wales.
First Minister, at the weekend, your leader set out his key commitment, and that is an NHS with time to care. Would you agree with me the only way of achieving that is ensuring we have adequate numbers of nurses on our wards, as proposed in my private member's bill on safe nursing standards?
Well, we're sympathetic, of course, to the principle of what the Leader of the Liberal Democrats is saying. My party, of course, has already said we would use the proceeds of the mansion tax to employ an extra 1,000 doctors, nurses, occupational therapists and other health professionals, which I'm sure the people of Wales would welcome.
First Minister, NHS professionals in England have said that they will need an additional £8 billion a year by the end of the Parliament to sustain funding for the NHS. The Nuffield report commissioned by your own government also pointed to significant deficits to the Welsh NHS budget unless additional resources were found. My party committed to putting that money in. The Labour Party refuses to make commitments that would either match what is needed as stated by the NHS professionals in England, and it certainly doesn't match what the report commissioned by your government says that the Welsh NHS will need. Why won't your party commit to that funding which independent experts have said the Welsh NHS will need to be sustainable?
I am perfectly confident that my party, should it be in government from Thursday onwards, will commit the proper level of resources to the NHS, and that will be reflected in the consequential we get in Wales. What I do know is that I look forward to the day, certainly on Friday, where we do not have a Secretary of State for Health in England who on the one hand bleats in fact, that the NHS should not be a political football, then does exactly the same thing to the Welsh NHS. The sort of person who's to run up behind you in the school playground, hit you and run away without being seen. That's the sort of person we're talking about. Those are the calibre of politicians that we have at the moment in Westminster, and that will change, we hope, on Friday.
We now move back to questions on the paper. And question 3 is Byron Davis.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. First Minister, will you outline the Welsh Government's initiatives to support businesses in South Wales West?
Yes, a range of initiatives which will help to create jobs and growth. They include the provision of business support through Business Wales, through ICT support and transport infrastructure improvements.
Thank you for that answer, First Minister. Last year, 70 leading Welsh businesses and chambers of commerce jointly signed a letter to you calling to extend the small business rate relief scheme to effectively abolish business rates on rateable values up to £12,000. Now, Welsh Conservatives have long called for 100% business rate relief for businesses with a rateable value up to £12,000 and relief tapered from 100% to zero for those with a rateable value of up to £15,000. This move, of course, would see 73% of businesses taken out of business rates altogether. If I understand you correctly, you did not reply to this letter from the 70 leading businesses, and more importantly, will you now commit to the extending of the small business rate relief scheme as we have set out on this side of the chamber?
Well, as you know, we did extend the small business rate relief scheme. We look forward, of course, to there being more money available from next week onwards and beyond in order to assist small businesses in Wales. But I have to say, I mean, what he is outlining in terms of his party's plans do not sit with his party's plans some years ago, some 2 or 3 years ago for their alternative budget, when they planned to cut spending on businesses, and particularly 30% cut in spending on job creation. He cannot have it both ways. On the one hand, claiming that his party would make deep cuts in Welsh public spending, while at the same time claiming there is money available to support his schemes.
David Rees.
First Minister, businesses in Portobello have obviously claimed that they've had an impact because of the Junction 141 closure, and I know the Minister has actually provided support in that period of time to those businesses, but the decision is due shortly. Will you look at initiatives to support those businesses? Because I hope the decision is the right decision and remain open, but they need to rebuild. Will you continue in those initiatives in Portobello to help those businesses and look at other alternative initiatives to support businesses grow again?
I know the Minister is very keen, of course, to assist Portobello Town Centre and to assist the businesses that are there, and I'm sure that the discussions that have taken place up to now will continue into the future.
Bethan Jenkins.
Diolch, Prif Weinidog.
Thank you. First Minister, in Neath, many people have told me that they no longer go into town to do their shopping because fees for parking have increased in the town centre. And what are you telling small businesses who are suffering in light of the fact that the Town Council isn't assisting small businesses in light of these high parking fees?
Well, I'm not totally certain what the prices are in Neath, but I know that almost every town in Wales does charge for parking. But of course, it's very difficult to know what the impact of increasing that charge will be on businesses. We do, of course, know that there is a great deal of pressure on small businesses, not only because of the shoppers coming or not, but also that there is a lot of online competition from the supermarkets, but we would expect the council to work closely with the businesses to ensure that the town continues to attract shoppers.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. First Minister, I've been contacted by a number of small businesses in my region who are concerned that despite the efforts of your government and others, the procurement policies of local government still excludes them from many contracts because those contracts are cast at too high a level for them to compete. I understand you have a procurement board, but there is no private businesses represented on that board. It's entirely made up of public sector nominees. Can I ask you what you'll be doing to try to encourage local authorities and other public sector authorities to try to tailor their procurement initiatives so that local businesses are able to compete for those contracts?
Mixed, I think, is the picture in terms of local government and procurement. We do encourage local government, of course, to ensure that where they can, that their procurement policies are such that local businesses are able to compete on a level playing field and therefore retain more money in the local economy. Through our own procurement initiative, of course, we've managed to roll out the knowledge that businesses need in terms of being able to bid. That sometimes is a problem. And also the understanding in the public sector that they do not have to tailor their procurement policies in such a way that small businesses and local businesses find it difficult to compete. And we've seen, of course, great improvements being made as far as Welsh Government are concerned. We would expect local authorities to follow that good example.
Question 4, Clear Griffith.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Will the First Minister make a statement on the devolution of energy powers to Wales?
Devolving all the necessary powers for all energy developments in Wales will enable us to realise our ambition to put in place a streamlined, transparent process for Wales.
Well, as the St David's Day statement made it clear that licensing of the extraction of unconventional gas on land in Wales is going to be devolved, and as this Senedd and indeed your government is committed to do everything we can to prevent fracking from happening here in Wales, will you, after the general election, write to the relevant minister in Westminster asking them not to allow further licensing, because the principle that that issue is to be devolved has been accepted, and the principle here that it's not the wish of this place to see that kind of activity happening here?
I concur completely, and a letter has already been sent to the Secretary of State making that exact point.
I'm more interested in the powers, the legislative powers that might be necessary to ensure that ordinary people can generate and sell electricity. At the moment, it's in the hands of the Big Six and the National Grid. And I wondered what conversations you might be having with the incoming government to ensure that ordinary people can actually generate their own electricity and sell it to their neighbours.
I don't know what the incoming government will look like yet, but certainly there will be discussions, I'm sure, with that government. But the point the member makes is a fair one, and that is how do we encourage more community projects. And Roe, of course, is currently working with 53 community-led renewable energy schemes, 9 of which are looking to be completed by the end of December 2015. That will give a total installed capacity of 5.5 megawatts, and that will lever in approximately £8.72 million in private investment, in turn generating £220,000 of annual income to local communities. We want to see that built on in the years to come.
Russell George.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I would be grateful if the First Minister could outline what streamlined processes the government does intend to use when dealing with energy projects over 50 megawatts.
Well, we would first of all we need to get the powers devolved. That much is true. But we would want to ensure that the system is indeed a streamlined system, and one where decisions are taken after consultation, but certainly in a prompt manner. Once the powers are devolved, we will then, of course, look to see how best those powers can be utilised in Wales.
Alan Roberts.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. First Minister, the St David's Day statement was entirely silent on the national grid, and the permissions following on from that. Now, would you be willing to open negotiations once again with a new government in Westminster to see if they are eager to see this development, because there are a number of problems in North Wales in relation to the national grid rather than the energy schemes themselves?
Well, there are 3 issues. Firstly, powers for terrestrial energy. Secondly, maritime energy. And that is all important when you think about the potential that we have from powers from the sea. And thirdly, of course, having parity with Scotland as regards being able to grant planning applications for the national grid.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. What steps have been taken by the Welsh Government to improve health outcomes for patients in South Wales Central?
Well, we invested an additional £295 million in 2015 to 16 for the NHS in Wales to deliver high-quality, sustainable health services.
Thank you for that answer, First Minister. If you look at the Cardiff and Vale NHS accounts, it shows that they had a deficit of in excess of £21 million at the end of the last financial year. I appreciate the legislation that's gone through this Assembly allows health boards to balance their budgets over a 3-year period now. But given that deficit in year 1 is substantial by any stretch of the imagination, what actions are the Welsh Government taking to work with health boards to mitigate those deficits, other than to have, at the end of the period, huge cuts in provision that will affect patient outcomes in Cardiff and Vale?
Well, we work on a regular basis with the local health boards in terms of monitoring their financial outputs. It's right to say that a 3-year time frame is far easier to manage than a 1-year time frame in terms of accounts. We expect those local health boards, of course, to come in within budget. We would hope over the next few years, of course, that we will see more money being allocated to Wales for the block grant that we can then use in order to deliver the health service and deliver the improvements, the continued improvements that we'll see in the future.
Julie Morgan.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Will the First Minister join me in congratulating the staff from the University Hospital of Wales in Cardiff North, in my constituency, and the NHS Blood and Transport team for the compassionate and skillful way in which they carried out the organ donation operation on newborn baby Teddy Houston, Britain's youngest ever organ donor.
And will he also join me in welcoming the fact that this organ donation and the bravery of the baby's parents has inspired thousands of people across the UK to join the organ donation register since then?
Absolutely. I'm sure I speak for all in this chamber that we are full of admiration for Teddy's family, particularly their courage and bravery at such a very difficult time for them as parents. And also, of course, their desire to be able to explain what they've done to encourage more people to become organ donors, and that's been successful. We know that more people, many more people have signed up to the organ donation register. Over 15,000 is believed at the last count. I'd also like to recognise all of the staff involved in this unique donation, all those who cared for Teddy and his mother in UHW. I know the retrieval surgery team from Birmingham worked very hard, and of course all those involved in the donation process from NHS Blood and transplant. It can be very difficult, I think, for all of us in this chamber to put ourselves in the position of Teddy's family, but I think it's worth saying once again, and I have written, members should know to the family that we are full of admiration and gratitude to the family for what they've done.
Question 6, Ellen Jones.
Will the First Minister provide an update on the Welsh Government's priorities for improving the economy in West Wales?
We are progressing with a range of priorities to improve the economy by making the most of our devolved powers to deliver wide-ranging actions that are supporting jobs, growth and improving the business environment. And of course, this includes the provision of business support through Business Wales, ICT support and transport infrastructure improvements.
First Minister, we've already heard this afternoon that small businesses feel they're being excluded from public sector contracts. Now, a small window cleaning firm told me that it's entirely impossible for them to compete any longer for public contracts because they are set across authorities or even at a national level. So public policy is led by your government, and this has led to the merging of contracts. Now, do you agree with me that in terms of support for local businesses and small businesses, then unpacking some of these larger contracts would be of assistance to those small businesses?
Well, there are two things. I think that is true. Where it's possible to do that, it should be considered. Secondly, what's also important is that small businesses work together, collaborate in order to tender. As a former Minister for Agriculture, where people were competing to ensure that Welsh beef went into the Welsh NHS, the problem at that time was that nobody could deal with a contract of that size. But things have changed, and it's exceptionally important that not only should the contracts be unpicked, but that the businesses collaborate in order to work together to win those contracts.
Paul Davis.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. First Minister, the Milford Haven Port Authority has been given outline planning permission to develop the docks in the town in order to transform the local economy. Now, given the importance of this regeneration scheme, which is worth some £20 million, and the importance of the haven for the economy of West Wales, what role can the Welsh Government play to support a scheme such as this and to ensure that Milford Haven reaches its full potential?
Well, we have been working with the port in order to ensure that this development progresses. We will be able to offer more support when we have powers over the ports. And it has been agreed by every party in this chamber and in Westminster. But Milford Haven, of course, is extremely important, not because of the Irish connection, but also the potential for bringing cargo and freight into the port itself. So we have been collaborating with the port and will continue to do so.
Powell.
First Minister, you may well be aware that following the loss of its community's first status, the Penparcau Community Forum in Aberystwyth is currently seeking funding to convert the former boxing club into a community centre. And it's hoped that that will incorporate a training kitchen in partnership with Coleg Ceredigion, space to hold training workshops, and also a community cafe. First Minister, do you agree with me that this is exactly the kind of project that merits support, because it fits in firstly with the Welsh Government's tackling poverty agenda,
but also assists in bringing young people back into vocational education, generating skills, and also producing further jobs in rural areas while boosting the local economy.
Well, the member will know that I can't give backing to any particular application at this stage, but he makes a powerful case for that project, and what he has said, of course, it's clear that much work has gone into the application. It's a matter now, of course, for the application to be determined in the appropriate way.
Question 7, Jenny Rathbone.
Diolch, Llywydd. What is the Welsh Government's strategy for improving public transport connections in South East Wales?
Yes, the Wales Transport Strategy sets out our approach to integrated transport, and the National Transport Plan then outlines a range of interventions and investments that we plan to make to improve transport links across Wales.
Last week, Cardiff Council approved the plans for the new BBC headquarters in Central Square, and Cardiff Council has the plans for the new bus station also in Central Square all ready to go out to consultation so that the people of Cardiff can have their say. What's the missing piece in the jigsaw is the plans for the metro, because it would be good to have that integration of that transport before we start building the bus station. And I just wondered if you can give us some timescale on when we might know whether the metro is going ahead.
Well, I understand that plans for the Central Square development will make provision for the metro. There are two things here. First of all, to ensure that the existing heavy rail corridors are protected in terms of ensuring that what is already there, if it's felt that it moves then onto light rail, that those corridors are there. Secondly, of course, it's important to ensure that on-street running is possible. Where there are planned extensions to the metro that take it away from the existing heavy rail network, and that is something that Cardiff Council, I understand, are already factoring into the development itself.
William Graham.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. First Minister, one of the key factors for public transport in South East Wales will be the integration between the road and rail network, particularly for places like the Usk Valley. How will this network complement and integrate into the South Wales metro system?
Well, of course, in terms of the metro itself, that's only part of the picture. The metro itself involves building on the existing heavy rail lines and their adaptation. Also, of course, looking to extend the network in the future, but also, of course, making sure that there's proper integration with bus services. And that is something that we are examining, particularly in terms of the possibilities of bus rapid transit corridors, and, of course, the need to particularly in the valleys, to link communities cross-valley, where the rail link or the metro link won't go. Nevertheless, people need to travel across valley in any event. So these are all factors that we're looking at in terms of ensuring that the metro is not just a system that involves the rail network or rail links, but also involves proper bus integration as well.
Lindsay Whittle.
Well, First Minister, Cardiff Bus is indeed an excellent service which provides widespread coverage to all areas of Cardiff, something that many parts of the valleys often lack. But crucially, it's also a not-for-profit service run for the benefit of Cardiff citizens. Are you in favour of expanding the not-for-profit bus services throughout Wales, and would you be in favour of helping local authorities, perhaps collaborating together to look to moving towards a Cardiff bus model?
Yes, I would. I think those models need to be looked at. It'll be easier, of course, when bus regulation is devolved. There are many of us in this chamber who will have had, I'm sure, experience of dealing with a traffic commissioner in Birmingham. Not happy experiences, I have to say, particularly dealing with some in the past with one or two bus companies. But nevertheless, it's absolutely right that when bus regulation is devolved, that we can then give full consideration to what the model of bus provision should be in different parts of Wales.
Elena Parrott.
Jill, Cardiff Council have confirmed that the bus station in Central Square will close in just 12 weeks' time on the 1st of August. And actually, according to a statement in the press today, they have no firm plan as to which choice of bus station will be chosen, and nor do they have any idea what interim arrangements are being made for passengers. It's absolutely critical to Cardiff, bringing in visitors and investment and the success of our enterprise zone, that interchange operates effectively, not only in the future, but also in the here and now as well. Will you make representations to Cardiff Council to make sure that they publish their interim arrangements as soon as possible so that people can plan for the future?
Well, in the early 1990s, Bridgend bus station was closed down with the bankruptcy of Western Welsh. It remained closed for some years, and it was a disaster for the town because nobody knew where to catch the buses. Eventually, the bus station was reopened. And now everybody understands that buses leave from a particular point. I think there are lessons there for all urban settlements in Wales, that it's absolutely crucial that where people come to a central point by train, and Cardiff has arguably more than one central point, but it does have a central station, that it is then as easy as possible for people to catch a bus from that point to go elsewhere. The experience that we had in Bridgend at that time was that it doesn't work if people don't have one point where they can catch a bus from, or at least one point where they know they can catch a bus to anywhere in that particular network from.
Question 8, Kirsty Williams.
Will the First Minister make a statement on education provision in Brecon and Radnorshire?
Yes, pupils in rural areas like Brecon and Radnorshire should have access to a range of education provision, the same as pupils in the rest of Wales, and consortia will support schools to improve learner outcomes, and the region's challenge advisors will broker support to ensure that pupils receive the provision needed.
Thank you, First Minister. Any right-minded person could see that Brecon High School is in a very bad state of repair and needs to be completely demolished and rebuilt. Powys County Council say that Welsh Government will only find the funding for that if the project is transformational, and in their view that means the closure of Gwynedd High School. First Minister, this has set two educational communities against each other. Would you not agree with me that if Brecon High School needs to be rebuilt, that should happen, and the pupils and teachers have a building that is fit for purpose, and it should not rely upon another community losing its school? And would you like to take the opportunity to visit Brecon High School with me for you to see firsthand the state of the buildings in which pupils and teachers are working?
Well, my understanding was that it was Powys's proposal, and they have indeed approved plans to consult on proposals to close Brecon High School and Gwynedd High School. Local authorities have the responsibility to plan for education provision in their area. I don't know of any other authority in Wales which has felt that this is a problem for them. She's right about Brecon High School. I don't dispute what she has said. It is important that where new schools are built, that they are obviously able to cater for demand. We know that, but also, of course, that they are up to their capacity. What I do know from experience, of course, is that quite often, where there are proposals to close old established schools in many communities in Wales, there's great opposition to begin with. And when a brand new school is built, that opposition quite often disappears. But it is a matter for Powys. It's not a matter, we're not telling Powys what they can and cannot do, but it is up to Powys to plan for education in their area, and then, of course, bid for funds if they feel it's appropriate to build a new school.
Question 9, Elena Parrott.
Will the First Minister outline the next stage of the proposed South Wales Metro?
Yes, members will be updated on the progress of the Metro and indeed the progress with regard to the Wales and Borders franchise, which is important in terms of the Metro's development before the summer recess.
Thank you, First Minister. I listened with interest to your answer to question 7, where you suggested that Cardiff Council were building in space for the Metro in the Central Square redevelopment, because I have here a letter from Ramesh Patel, who's the Cabinet Member for Transport from Cardiff Council, in the Echo today or yesterday, that says, given that the plans are insufficiently developed at this stage, we are unable to consider them in this development. Obviously we're going to a period where they're going to be consulting on proposals for a new bus station and how that works in Central Square. Please, can you bring forward the publication of your Metro proposal so that the public can see in that consultation period whether those two plans are going to fit adequately together?
Well, the initial proposals of the Metro revolved around the existing rail network, rather than looking to extend it at this stage. There's work to do, for example, to look to electrify the existing rail network, and that would take priority. What happens, of course, with light rail networks, and we see this in Manchester as one example, is that they fit around the city rather than the city fitting around the network. So whatever the proposal is for Central Square, unless it's physically completely bounded by buildings that doesn't allow any access, then of course it will be possible to put a light rail line into the existing square, and in then, of course, towards Central Station itself.
Jeff Cuthbert.
Diolch, Llywydd. I welcome the South Wales Metro proposals. Do you agree with me, First Minister, that this will help to alleviate current overcrowding during peak times on Arriva Trains Wales services, can lead as well to a better and more efficient public transport system, to relieve road congestion around the Cyflwynir Basin at peak times, something I experienced directly today when I went to meet the Deputy Minister for Tourism at Cyflwynir Castle, and finally, it will also lead to quicker and easier access to major centres of employment
thus enabling to spread housing developments more evenly across my constituency, and particularly in the northern part of the Rhymney Valley?
Well, I agree entirely with him. There are several factors here: increasing capacity, increasing frequency, comfort of passengers as well, of course, so that fewer passengers have to stand, if at all, in the future, and of course ease of extension in terms of the way that the network could be developed in the future. But we do know that the existing service under the Wales and Borders franchise is at more than capacity at certain times of day, and that will have to be addressed as part of the Metro proposals.
Ramsey?
First Minister, the idea of the Metro is a great one in principle, but there is a growing concern that the complexities of a project like this are starting to prove a little bit too much for your government in developing these ideas. Transport expert Stuart Cole, as you'll know well, believes that the timescales for delivering the Metro are unrealistic, given this continue dithering over whether you're going to use light rail, trams or heavy rail. When will these key decisions be taken so that Cardiff Council and other local authorities can get on with factoring your decisions into their planning process? Because at the moment, it all seems to be stalling.
No, I mean, as I said, members will be updated before the summer recess. There are complexities. That does not undermine our ambition. For example, when it comes to light rail, nothing's devolved in terms of, I think I'm right in saying, in terms of operation of light rail. For example, if a line is to be converted from heavy rail to light rail, it's not clear to us that we have the powers at the moment to do it. So we're reliant on others to actually do the work for us. That is a complexity. There are issues in terms of the different requirements of signalling. There are issues in terms of ensuring that there is staffing continuity on if light rail is adopted. So these are all issues that are being examined at the moment. But I have to say to members that given the current state of play with regard to rail powers, not all the powers to create the Metro are within the hands of the Welsh Government. We don't anticipate there will be difficulties as far as the Department for Transport are concerned, but nevertheless, it's not something that's entirely within our control at the moment. That said, as I said, members will be updated before the summer. There have been a number of meetings with myself, with the Minister, and indeed with officials and others, with a view to providing members with the information they need by the summer.
Lindsay Whittle.
Well, what recent discussions have you or relevant ministers and officials had with members of the European Commission regarding the allocation of EU structural funds to the Metro system, and has your current position on a second M4 affected the planned allocation of such funds?
No, is the answer. There are two different pots of money, as the member knows. The M4 would be out of the borrowing pot that we will be given by the UK Government in terms of European Commission funding. We are very actively looking at European Commission funding with regard to funding the Metro itself. And that is one of the areas that would make a significant difference to the Metro, examining the possibilities of European funding and, of course, then getting that funding released. It does not interfere or compete in any way with funding for the M4 relief road.
Finally, Joyce Watson.
Diolch. Llawed, will the First Minister make a statement on childcare provision in Mid and West Wales?
Yes, ensuring access to affordable, high-quality childcare, especially for those in our most disadvantaged areas across Wales, is a priority for the Welsh Government, and our wider priorities are set out in our early years and childcare plan.
Thank you for that answer, Minister. Despite what the Conservatives and the supporters say, childcare is not a so-called soft issue. It is central to economic progress, particularly in areas like Mid and West Wales. And childcare is a huge issue for working families. It's the difference between being able to actually go to work and to be able to afford that childcare. And we all know that the Flying Start provision that Welsh Labour has given to people has increased from 18,000 to 33,000 in this Assembly. Therefore, First Minister, would you like to tell me what difference you believe that the Labour's pledge to double free childcare from 10 to 20 hours for working parents will make to families in Wales?
An enormous difference. We know it's far from being a soft issue, as it's been put. It's not by the member, I hesitate to add. This is a fundamental economic issue. If we want to ensure that people are able to work, then of course they need to be supported to do that. And we know that increasingly people move further away from where they're from. They're away from their families. They don't have that network that perhaps 10 or 20 years ago was true. And as a result of that, they have to find other ways to ensure that they can get in place proper childcare. And we want to make sure that as far as Wales is concerned, that childcare is in place.
Thank you, First Minister. I have accepted